Game design. I was on Twitter the other day and Lithium City came up as a recommendation. I love a good indie game, and a twin-stick actioner with a Tron-like aesthetic is pitch perfect for me. But I wasn't just sold the game Lithium City by Filipino game developer Nico Tuason. I think that's how you pronounce it. I seriously plundered his YouTube channel trying to hear him say his name, but I was also sold his blog, in which he details his 10-year journey as a developer, including the 6-year on and off creation of Lithium City. I'm not going to spell it all out for you. I think Nico does a great job all his own, and I'm going to link to it below, but I do want to hit on the key points. Nico started out as a Flash game developer, building and selling tower defense style strategy games to Flash sites like Congregate. Lithium City began life in 2014 looking a lot like the game that's on sale today, inspired by slow motion tactics game Door Kickers and the much faster actioner Hotline Miami. Watching these prototypes in motion on his blog and his YouTube channel, it's cool to see how things evolved. Clearly, Lithium City wound up far closer to Hotline Miami. So, the game. Lithium City is extremely stylish. It's clear that Nico has a Flash pedigree not because this was made in Flash, which is now called Animate, but because it has an extremely clean and crisp vector look. The characters aren't cel-shaded, they're actually 3D entities that have 2D shapes drawn over them, something he describes in his blog. The version that ships today includes 6 chapters and a prologue, although Nico obviously has plans for far more content. I'm curious why this game isn't being sold as an early access title, because it's clearly far from finished. As a creator and hobbyist game developer myself, I understand the real artist ship mentality, and it's clear that Nico is a shipper too. I just don't understand why he's trying to sell it as a finished game. Lithium City opens with our female protagonist wielding a sword while floating over a dead body. Why? We don't know. Let's engage. What you'll notice right away is that you're stuck in slow motion as you figure out your dashes and attacks in a very well done tutorial. You kinda wonder if you've pressed a wrong button or something because you can't seem to escape slow motion. By the end of this prologue, I was actually sold on it, because you get to really process your situation and plan your attacks. It's the opposite of how Max Payne or Impact handle it, where you'd ideally love to be in slow motion the entire time. The game just takes care of it for you. Or so I thought. Chapter 1 begins elsewhere with another aqua-haired heroine, but in real time. This is how you play the rest of the game. Whatever dreams I had of playing Lithium City in slow motion are now out the window. Well, whatever, I suppose. With your dash as a shield, your first weapon is your fists. Their range is short, but if you can take out virtually any human enemy, you can grab their weapon, which allows for far more action. Soon enough, you're handling automatic pistols, revolvers, shotguns, and grenades, even if their lives are relatively short. Chapter 5's Tron-esque disc is an excellently fun weapon. The game also exercises your sprinting muscles. Not only can you outmaneuver your enemies, the dash allows you to traverse the environment quickly. This is beyond convenient. It allows for the creation of faux platforming sections, forcing you to dash between stable areas. In its simplest form, it enables the helicopter sprint of Chapter 6, where you need to make your way through the level quickly while avoiding the helicopter's minigun spray, which is thankfully telegraphed. These sections aren't terribly fun, but they work. By now you're probably already in awe of how the game looks, because it's beautiful. Walls are transparent so you can see what's going on, and floors are transparent because they look cool. It's polygonal and neon all around, although I wished it featured more organic architecture beyond the plants. I mean, stuff that's rough looking, even if it's still polygonal, like rocky surfaces. Even randomly scattered items in the world, like garbage or newspapers laid out like these guns placed randomly on this set of tables, would be welcome because the game's layouts are clean and grid-based to the point of being boring in spots. The game's sound design is strong and effective. Your punches land, the guns bang, but the sound accentuates you, your enemies, and the environment's fragility with incredible use of glass crashing and Foley work that mirrors the particulate breaking up on the screen perfectly. It's really effective. On top of that is a solid EDM soundtrack by Nico's brother, John Camara. The game has a pretty solid base, but it does have some big opportunities for improvement. The game's content can be breezed through in just over 2 hours and features what Nico says is about a third of the game's intended chapters. There's almost nothing in the way of narrative. Imagine watching a movie but every fourth scene is missing. You can piece together what's going on, but you can't help but feel something very important and structural is missing. Combat, however, is another ball of yarn because playing it, something didn't feel quite right. It's not bad by any means, but it feels off. Lithium City is a twin-stick shooter with very simple controls. You dash, you have one attack, and you pick up and drop weapons with a single function. With your melee weaponry, I found myself using the face buttons to attack instead of the right trigger, which meant that my right thumb was constantly sliding on and off the right stick as I alternated between melee weapons and firearms. I think it's a comfort thing, but I feel it also slowed my response time. It'd be great if the dash caused damage to enemies when pushing through them, or the game snapped you to just behind the enemy when rushing through them, so you could enact some immediate violence. I'm playing the fully 3D twin-stick shooter Ruiner right now as well, and it just feels more responsive overall. But like other contemporary twin-stick shooters, it has a more top-down perspective that reduces perspective misjudgment. Lithium City is technically 3D in terms of its virtual space, but it's presented as a dimetric 2D, and even though the game puts glowing circles underneath the characters to orient you and provide sight lines when using guns, it just doesn't feel like enough. When relying on my fists to disarm bad guys, I was often just outside of their hitbox range, and the game doesn't give a good indication of what that range is until you're literally making contact with them. I feel the game would strongly benefit by outlining enemies that you're able to strike and shoot. This would also help with crowd control, since the 2D shaded enemies aren't affected by environmental lighting, and not only do they blend together, sometimes your character blends into the environment a little too easily. It would also make playing this soccer game at the end of Chapter 5 a lot easier because the ball uses Z-space as well, and it can be difficult to measure your distance relative to it and strike it into your opponent's goal. Perspective troubles are something that Nico highlights in his blog, so I know he's aware of it to some extent. While the levels are very, very pretty, navigating them can be. Transparent foreground walls can be obscured by other foreground walls and objects when they layer on top of each other. They can also obscure the things behind them, like in this room where I need to determine where enemies are at a glance. Another prime example is this laser maze. It's difficult to navigate as is, much less when you can't determine what space your character occupies. Clay's Invisible Ink, which shares the game's cyberpunk neon 2D dimetric look, had the same problem, but they implemented a clever solution in being able to truncate walls to make navigation easier. Lithium City could really benefit from something like that. Aside from all that is the game's just incredible difficulty in spots. I think even if Nico tidied up some of my issues with the combat and level design, this game just beat me up in spots. Your character is intentionally fragile, which facilitates the need for your dash, but dying can be the most frustrating part. Each chapter is divided into sub-chapters, which are divided into scenes, but the game only checkpoints you at the end of each sub-chapter. So there are spots where, if you die, you need to redo 3 or 4 scenes before you can catch up to where you died. While the game is heavily inspired by Hotline Miami, that game succeeds by getting you back into the action quickly on the level you are working on, and the game operates so quickly, responds so viscerally, and is so unambiguous about your actions because of its strict top-down perspective that you really do feel the game is fair even when you are screwing up repeatedly. Lithium City just isn't fair in points. It definitely feels like you have to fight the game itself at times. I'm not a controller thrower by any means, but I got really close during some of the game's "you have got to be kidding me" moments that sent me back a little too far after a death. Lithium City has a whole lot of potential. There's definitely a solid core here, but in an era where games are services and never truly finished, this standalone actioner is far from a finished game. It feels like a very elaborate demo. In Nico's blog, he shows screenshots of what looks like some kind of federal agency and a dialogue system, neither of which appear here. Those may very well be vestigial features, but if they're not, it feels like I'm playing Grand Theft Auto before they've put in any cars. This game deserves to be more complex than what we have. The action alone isn't enough. Art direction alone isn't enough. It needs a sturdy narrative or it needs more gameplay, preferably both. And that's on top of the 18 to 20 chapters the game was built in mind for. At $8, you can't go too wrong. I mean, it is a 2-hour experience, but I would definitely hold off until there's more game here.
Hey everybody, thank you for watching my preview look at Lithium City. I can't wait to see more of it as it's developed. I want to pitch something to you real quick. Kind of in this race here, I'd love for this channel, the Nth Review, to hit 500 subscribers by October 23. And the reason why is that it's the 6th anniversary of this channel. And I think that would be very, very cool. And I think you'd like it too. Whatever. No, but seriously, I think that's a really cool goal. So if you'd help me with that, help each other, I think we can get that done. I want to thank my patrons. They're over here. Pew! Like and subscribe, please, if you liked what you saw. That helps these videos go out and be seen to be more people on the YouTubes. That's what helps get the message out on the YouTube front. So like, subscribe, notify, comment, share, all of those things help get the message out about the Nth Review, which will hit 500 subscribers by October 23, 2020. Damn! If you got a few extra dollars, hey, I do have a Patreon, link in the description below. And with all that said, the conversation does continue on Discord and Reddit and Facebook and Twitter. And with all that said, hey, I'll see you next time.